I think this is the Padres news of the day, and it was a letter from John Seidler, the chairman of the San Diego Padres. I'm going to read it in its entirety. You've read it. Most people that are listening to this podcast have read it. But just in case, we want to make sure everybody knows what we're talking about. We were wondering, John, the season ended on Thursday. We were wondering. Others were wondering. I was listening to the John and Jim show the other day, and they were bemoaning the fact that nobody had spoken publicly since the season ended. We haven't heard from A.J. Preller. We haven't heard from Mike Schilt, but beyond their post-game press conference. We haven't heard from John Seidler. We haven't heard from Eric Grupner, the people who you would think that you would want to hear from. Well, now we have, and we have heard from John Seidler. You can do a whole episode whether or not you think John Seidler actually wrote this or not. I don't know that that's where I really want to spend a bunch of my energy today, but here it goes. Dear faithful Padre fans, thank you for your unwavering and passionate support for the Padres in 2025. Because of you, we set a new all-time franchise attendance record and had the best home field advantage in Major League Baseball. You are the engine that powers the Padres and our players. On behalf of the entire Padre organization, we greatly appreciate you. You are the best fans in baseball, and we are grateful for your faithful support. We are grateful for your faithful support. We have made the postseason in 4 of the last 6 years. 2 consecutive 90-win regular seasons for the first time in our franchise history. We fell short of our goal to win a World Series championship. Our elimination in the wild card round was a disappointment and exposed areas where we must improve. As we look ahead to 2026, our goal remains the same, but we need to get better to accomplish that goal. The process of getting better will begin immediately as we perform a thorough review of our organization with an eye towards improving and winning our first World Series championship. Thank you again for supporting the Padres, and I look forward to seeing you at Petco Park in 2026. Sincerely, John Seidler, Chairman. This is, sign there, auto pen, whatever. I don't. So we've seen different versions of this in the past. I think one of the club statements that we read recently came from Eric Grupner. It was that season ticket holder email that was sent out about the increase in pricing. And I think we pointed out then, hey, something seems off here that A.J. Preller isn't part of that. Well, nobody is mentioned in this one other than John Seidler. As John Seidler says, a thorough review of our organization with an eye towards improving and winning the first World Series championship. This obviously, John, is the first thing that anybody has said from a leadership position since the Padres were eliminated last Thursday. I think it is certainly open to interpretation. I don't know that I've changed any of my opinions about the Padres, but you've had a night now to sleep on this. Do you think anything of this email that went out from John Seidler to Padre fans on Monday afternoon?
I do, and I'm going to try and not be too wordy about this. I'm going to start with my initial reaction, which is he definitely wrote this because it is terribly written. I mean, it's just very poorly written and boring to boot. I read this, and like everyone else, I honed in on the process of getting better will begin immediately as we perform a thorough review of our organization with an eye towards improvement, winning, blah, blah, blah. And also the sentence, our elimination in the wild card round was a disappointment and exposed areas where we must improve. Didn't state what those areas were, but said that the wild card round exposed areas where we must improve. As two people that watched the wild card games, I feel like maybe we can bandy about with what those areas are that he might be talking about. But I looked at this and I was like, Jesus, this sounds really bad for Preller. Maybe this sounds bad for Mike Schilt. Like, it just doesn't sound great. And then I was like, I need to double check myself because we, for the last, 2 weeks, have been kind of talking about, like, is this the end for Preller and the Padres? And I'm like, maybe my head's too far there. Maybe I'm looking at it through a tinted colored lens. So I did what any sane person does in 2025. I took this letter and I sent it to ChatGPT. And I said, okay. ChatGPT, here is a letter that the Padres chairman sent to the season ticket holders. Would you tell me what you think of it? I will read you ChatGPT's thorough review of this letter first.
I must admit, I did not expect this turn on today's podcast.
I wanted an unbiased opinion, Darren. So here's what ChatGPT said. Yes, there is a bit to take away from that letter, even though it is written in pretty standard PR speak. Here's a breakdown of what's really being said and not said. First section, positive framing. He emphasizes the attendance record and the, quote, best home field advantage, unquote, which are fan-centered achievements. That's meant to remind people that despite a disappointing postseason, there was progress and energy around the team. Next bullet point. Mentions 4 playoff appearances in 6 years and back-to-back 90-win seasons. That's framing the recent stretch as a sustained success era, historically true for the Padres. I don't know what that's supposed to mean. Next, what's between the lines? The line about, quote, thorough review of our organization is the most interesting. I'd like to remind you here that I did not point ChatGPT in this direction. It just picked it up on its own. The line about a thorough review of our organization is the most interesting. That's usually front office code for changes are coming. It could mean coaching or player development changes. It could also suggest a reevaluation of spending, roster construction, or leadership structure. The lack of any mention of A.J. Preller, Mike Schilt, or any specific direction is notable. It keeps options open. That often signals that ownership doesn't want to commit publicly until after internal decisions are made. I agree with all this up until this point, and I'm not saying it changes. And this is the last section and then kind of a summary. What's missing? There is no reference to a financial approach, payroll, or sustainability. That omission might be intentional after last year's payroll cuts drew fan criticism. They probably don't want to stir up speculation. There's no talk of continuity or confidence in the current baseball operations leadership. That silence can be telling too. If everything were steady internally, they'd usually reinforce it. Here's the bottom line. This letter reads like, quote, thanks for sticking with us. We know expectations are high, we didn't deliver, and we're evaluating what went wrong. Stay tuned. Changes may be coming. If you're a fan trying to read the tea leaves, A, this doesn't sound like a rebuild or a teardown letter, but B, it does sound like something or someone might be on the chopping block, and they're bracing fans for off-season shakeups. That's a pretty good review of the freaking letter, I think, right?
John, I'm not sure that I think we should edit this out. I don't think we should be admitting to our audience that ChatGPT might be doing a better job analyzing this letter than you and I are doing.
It's just I wanted the unbiased opinion, and
I really don't. I think that is frightening that they gave it that thorough of an analysis. Again, I think you and I probably would have hit a lot of those points on our own too, because I actually did write down 2 quotes: exposed areas where we must improve, and we will perform a thorough review of our organization. So, those are the key. And it does open the door for these kind of changes. It doesn't mean that they're going to happen, but, if you are somebody just on the surface, right? Because maybe behind the scenes, maybe some people have been told that their jobs are not at any risk whatsoever, right? This could be as little as a hitting coach, or this could be as big as a president of baseball operations and or a manager. To me, that's sort of where this gets left to interpretation.